Have you ever wondered how we can get along better? And if there were a magic pill to make this happen, would everyone take it? Some people think in order to get intercultural competence, they need to walk around to many places with different people and travel to different countries. But what if I told you that the way to gain intercultural competence was to learn improvisation? I'd like you to do something with me. Can we breathe together for a minute? So we're going to just take a really good big breath in at the count of 4. Something as simple as breath can make you aware of how you're feeling. Are you tense? Are you calm? Are you anxious? Or are you free? I've had a life as an artist and jazz musician and had the ability to travel all over the world meeting people from all walks of life. And what I am grateful for is learning that the power of breath can bring you to an awareness of how you're interacting and who you are being when you're with different others. I'd like to invite you on my journey to meet my friends, my family, and where jazz improvisation helped me to learn about intercultural maturity and how you may think of it as something that you may like. I used to see these flags at Rockefeller Center while my mom was watching TV and they were on the screen. And I was intrigued by these flags that represented people in all of these places. And I would tell my mom, I'm going to go to those countries and meet those people. And she'd say, girl, just eat your oatmeal so you won't be late for school. I was ready for show and tell. My first grade teacher squashed my first entry into belonging and attempting to share with my classmates. I'll tell you the story. It was my turn for show and tell, and I took a picture of my mom, a big picture, the entire page in the newspaper. My dad painted a picture of my mother. I was so proud and excited. My family in the main Chicago newspaper, I was on cloud 9. But not for long. My first grade teacher's face turned red. She snatched the page from me and she ordered me to the back of the class and she told me to sit separately from the other students. She pinned a note to my blouse, written to my parents in red ink, and I later learned from my mother that that was the height of disrespect. I was suspended from school. And I could not go back to school until one of my parents came up to speak to the principal. I felt labeled and my family was scandalized by my teacher. My father did come up and he talked to the principal and explained that he was an artist and he painted people much like the picture he painted of my mommy, reading a newspaper, smoking a cigarette, in nothing but her underwear and bare-breasted. But my father taught us that this wasn't nudity, but my teacher thought that it was, and that it was unacceptable. My 6-year-old mind didn't understand what she meant, but my father taught us that women that he would paint from all over the world would be adorned with jewelry, bare-breasted, and these were beautiful African women. I later learned that my teacher thought my family was inappropriate. It was my first memory of shame. My 6-year-old self had to rebuild confidence and self-esteem, and luckily my father would always come and say to me, you can be anything you want, and encourage me, and would replace that idea that something was wrong with me or my family. I could do whatever I set my mind to. My parents were unique. My father was a painter, as I shared. He would sell his artwork all up the Gold Coast art shows. My mother was a cosmetologist. My father had a wide array of friends from many different backgrounds, but my mother mostly had her family as the community that she moved around in. Sometimes my mother would say things that would seem like racist comments about white people. And it caught me off guard. But my father would come right behind and say to us, don't misunderstand. Her anger and bitterness is because her only brother was killed violently at work by a coworker who threw him into a machine and mangled his body. Because my father came right behind my mother's comments, he would be able to temper us so that we didn't embed her words as the way that we should think about white people. That we would know, and he would say, only judge people by who they are, not by a group. These happenings in my family, I came to understand in my work as an intercultural maturity researcher, were very important because the way we create our foundational value systems about other people outside of our family or who we are used to being around was the way that we are trained at home and in our communities. Othering. I think that this is the way my little brother would think of me and my sister when we snuck in his room and played with his Hot Wheels track and cars. But this categorization of people as others is a way for us to open the door to bias-based behaviors. Luckily, the way my parents would teach and talk to us about people and being open and having new ideas about things you would want to do helped to train us in an intercultural maturity mindset. When you move the thought about others and othering to this, it changes othering to a positive. In April of 1935, my mother Vera and her twin sister Vivian were one set of 44 sets of twins to advertise the new twin Zephyr train that would go between Chicago and Minneapolis-St. Paul. I thought this was amazing that these two little black girls from the south side of very segregated Chicago were used for this two-city marketing campaign. And when I saw this photo, I was astonished. And I remember asking my mother about this. She didn't talk about it much. But you know what she said? You can't see the knees of her knees in this picture. In the original, you can. But all she talked about was hating to stand next to her twin sister and seeing that she had knocked knees. Researchers tell us that intercultural competence can only be achieved by achieving intercultural maturity. But how does one achieve that? The cognitive, interpersonal, and intrapersonal domains of our personal development come about by us interacting with people, different others. Our awareness, how do you feel when you are in a room full of people and you may be the only one like you or your family? How do you feel when you're in a supermarket or in a new country? Do you travel to a new country with your friends and you only stay together and you don't interact with other people? When you interact with other people, how do you feel about it? Your intrapersonal development will let you know if you are someone who feels fearful or uneasy about being around someone that you're not used to being around. When you develop these traits, and you can learn and activate these by doing the following: being open, allowing your creativity to come forth. It's creative to walk over to someone in Starbucks and says, you can come in front of me. I can go behind you. Or maybe pay for their coffee or strike up a conversation. The openness, the ability to be curious about people that you've never met or don't know is the way to activate intercultural maturity. And being in situations with different others activates these abilities. All of my childhood memories and influences were a tapestry of these skills. The framing I learned in young life gave me a lens to have a perception about my family. So it set the stage for me embracing Black American music, what's known all over the world as jazz. In this jazz music that was really my father's music, I would sit on his knee while he painted, and be so excited about the sounds. He would talk to me about the jazz musicians and what they were doing. He would explain what improvisation was to me, like the connective tissue to creativity. I was sold. What do you mean that you can do something, that you can be creative and do it with other people? You don't even have to be able to have their same language, but you have the language of jazz. You can be open and practice all of the things they were teaching me as a child. I was sold. And when I learned about improvisation in this way, I really wanted to know more. So let me talk to you about improvisation. Improvisation has many of the same skills that we see activated by intercultural maturity. But I think for this part of the talk, I'm going to invite my friends to join me. Mimi Jones on bass, Yoran Israel on drums, and Baron Timus on guitar. Improvisation, in a general description, is a departure from a prescribed way to do something. But in music, it means that you can kind of color outside the lines. Outside the lines in this way would mean the composition or the words or the form. And this is really important. In improvisation, you have to rely on your bandmates. You have to be open to their ideas. You have to agree to learn from each other moment by moment in the part of the music. We're going to play a song, a rhythm changes song I wrote called Swing, Rhythm, Swing. Every time you hear the melody, it is swinging. When you get this melody, you know it is fun to go. If you mess around and drop the beat of this rhythm, you will know you've reached the finest party and fill the show. So this is really fun to do with each other. When a singer stops singing the lyric, they may scat. The musicians have a choice to make. They can follow me and support me, or not support me. And this is what it sounds like when we don't support each other. Let us say, oh my God, it doesn't sound like we want it. But when we come back to the melody we're singing, and then everything is all right with the world. Jazz musicians spend a lot of time working on this ability with each other. They have to listen and respond. They have to be willing to let go of whatever their idea was going to be in the moment and follow the leader. Their fellowship is just as important as their leadership. There's no room for someone to be selfish here. Now, improvisation is in many different styles of music. You have improvisation in gospel, blues, folk, hip-hop, classical music. But in jazz music, improvisation is one of the ways you're judged, so the stakes are high. But it is definitely a way and a door into intercultural maturity. Their cognitive abilities are heightened, the awareness that they have, the attentiveness, the responsiveness. Their interpersonal skills are heightened because now they're interacting with each other. Shall I help the piano player? Shall I help the guitarist? Or shall I play really loud so you don't hear the bassist? And in intrapersonal skills, how do I feel about what I'm doing at the moment? Does the audience like it? Am I playing too fast? Am I doing something and I don't care what they think, so I turn my back to them and just wail away? These are always going on. This interplay and this dance of improvisation is the very height of intercultural maturity. There's a great story about the great pianist Herbie Hancock being on stage and making a mistake while he was playing with the great trumpeter Miles Davis. He froze. He wondered if Miles would hear the mistake and what he would do. But what Miles Davis decided was that he would not make Herbie Hancock's mistake spotlighted by not giving him support. Instead, he played a different chord on his trumpet that would support the note that Herbie Hancock played. This is the height of showing cognitive awareness, responsiveness, and attentiveness to what was going on in the moment. He was using his interpersonal skills to be able to listen to what the rest of the band was doing and take leadership to take them in a new direction, because he was feeling like he wanted to support Herbie at that time. Jazz musicians are always doing this, you hope, in improvisation. How can you learn to improvise if you're not a musician? Improvise every day. Do things that are different. Allow yourself to take a new way home from work. Allow yourself to try a new meal with international foods. Go to a country abroad with your friends, and don't just stay in your own huddle. Interact with each other and allow yourself to learn something. I once took a group of students all the way to Batumi, Georgia, Eastern Europe. They were looking for McDonald's. You can talk to your neighbor, teach your family members to talk to their friends, and teach your children to talk to other children who they may not be familiar with. You can innovate and improvise a room in your home or an entire house, like my husband likes to do. The top right house was the first house he looked at, and the bottom right house is how he made that house look. I call him the John Coltrane of house renovations. So improvise every day. It invites intercultural maturity in. Now I want you to go back to that breath we were doing in the beginning. And we're going to improvise on that breath. We're going to use a different way to count that breath. Ready? Inhale for 4, but now you're going to exhale for 6. Ready? And we changed how we breathe. We just improvised. Congratulate yourself. Thank you very much for listening. I'm going to get back to the music with my friends. You can join along and improvise with us in whatever way you like. Jazz is a music that requires everyone to participate in making the music happen. You can clap, whistle, dance, whatever suits you at the moment. Yeah. Double day, fly double day, da 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 da, ba ba da 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 day, day, la day day. Yeah, let's listen to Miriam, Mimi Jones. Yeah, come on, give her some. Yaron Israel on drums. Hear the melody, it is swinging. You don't want to sing this melody and be lame, oh no. If you mess around and drop the beat on this rhythm, you will find your feet meandering back and to and fro. But if you sing, you can sing that funny melody. And if you swing, you'll command the biggest repartee. If you mess around and stop the soul of his ditty, you will find a cymbal at your feet. And now hit the door. Thank you.